This is your lecture on the rhetorical appeals. We appeal to many things appeal to us, but what is an appeal? It is a request. You are asking the audience to believe you. You are requesting that they examine the evidence as you have laid it out and reason the way you have. You are asking them to feel about things the way you feel about them. And you are assuring them it is okay to agree with you because you know what you're talking about and you can be trusted. This last one is why I've noted on some of your assignments how typos threaten your credibility. Let's start with the most important of the appeals. Logos. Logos is also called the appeal to reason or the rational appeal. Edward P.J. Corbett, one of America's great educators and rhetoricians, wrote, "Rationality is man's essential characteristic. It is what makes man human and differentiates him from other animals. Ideally, reason should dominate all of man's thinking and actions, but actually, man is often influenced by passions and prejudices and customs." He goes on to write that because the rhetoricians had that faith in their fellow man, they thought of rhetoric as an offshoot of logic, the science of human reasoning. So when we think of logos, we can think of the word that sounds similar, and in fact is the contemporary manifestation of that very root word, logos. That word is logic. In logical arguments, we look for soundness and validity. This is not a class in logic, so I will not go into that further than to note the following argument is valid. If A, then B. A, therefore B. If you are interested in how those and other arguments function, I suggest you take a philosophy class on symbolic logic. It would be worth your while. When you think of logos, think of common sense, reason, and analysis. It consists of taking a position and supporting that position with evidence. Academics, researchers, lawyers, scientists all deal predominantly with logos. Let's return to Corbett's comment on the rationality of humans. He wrote, "Ideally, reason should dominate all of man's thinking and actions, but actually, man is often influenced by passions and prejudices and customs." Realizing that humans are passion-feeling creatures, we can persuade them with an appeal to pathos. When you think of pathos, think of passion. There are moments in Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from a Birmingham jail, which he will read next week, that move me to tears every time I read them. And I've read that essay hundreds of times. It still happens. The appeal to a person's emotions is a powerful appeal. Sometimes it might be more powerful than their reason. We behave irrationally because of our emotions. If someone hurt my wife, even though I am a logical person and understand that, as Ursula Le Guin wrote, violence is the act of weakness and the spirit of strength lies in holding fast to the truth, I am entirely capable of committing horrible violence in retribution. I would be wrong, but my reaction is somehow understandable. We understand how powerful a sway emotions can have over humans. Because we all know this power is so compelling, we sometimes even have the ability to forgive the error, write it off as a crime of passion. You will find very few chances for appeals to pathos in academic writing, outside of personal essays one might write in an English class. Corbett notes, there is nothing necessarily reprehensible about being moved to action through our emotions. In fact, it is perfectly normal. Since it is our will ultimately that moves us to action, and since the emotions have a powerful influence on the will, many of our actions are prompted by the stimulus of our emotions. When you think of pathos, think of artists, writers, musicians, politicians, or religious leaders. Politicians will frequently appeal to pathos. Contemporary politicians will frequently appeal to your fears or prejudices, which is also pathos. And remember, there is nothing wrong with being moved to action through our emotions. Speaking of prejudices, let's return to the Corbett quote. He writes, ideally, reason should dominate all of man's thinking and actions. But actually, man is often influenced by passions and prejudices and customs. We've addressed appeals to reason, which are logos, and to emotion or passions, which are pathos. The third rhetorical appeal is ethos. Think of ethos as the author's credentials, her trustworthiness, her believability. You might be tempted to think of ethos as ethics, but I want you to think of it as authority. Think of ethos as the way the audience views the author. Next week, when you read Letter from a Birmingham Jail, be on the lookout for the appeal to ethos. Ethos is someone's credentials, their credibility, their character, their reliability. Corbett states, the ethical appeal is exerted, according to Aristotle, when the speech itself impresses the audience that the speaker is a man or woman of sound sense, high moral character, and benevolence. An unknown author might have very little in the way of an appeal to ethos until she makes clear her authority to speak or write on an issue. I would not go to a medical doctor for advice on fixing my car. I would not go to a mechanic for advice or information on how to appropriately and safely deal with a pandemic. I would not go to a poet for information on how to launch a satellite into space, nor would I go to any old astronomer for a great collection of poetry. Think of ethos as expertise. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. can address his audience with some authority in Letter from a Birmingham Jail because he is a pastor, and his stated audience is a collection of other religious leaders. The appeal to ethos is sort of like an appeal to our prejudices. Remember your Know Thyself essay. I can speak with much authority on the subject of narrative, poetry, or writing in general because I am a professor and a writer. I can speak with some authority on subjects pertaining to the military because I am a veteran. Ask yourself, what can you speak about with authority? If you explain to an audience that you can speak about something in an authoritative way and that they should be convinced of your argument because you are an authority on the subject, you are making an appeal to ethos. When you think of ethos, think of cops. Police officers will frequently appeal to ethos to get you to do what they want you to do. Respect my authority. That's it for this lecture. If you read the course material and do your homework, you will get better at writing. That is an appeal to logos. If you plagiarize or skip the readings or don't do your homework, you will fail this class and might be miserable your entire life and possibly die a painful and lonely death. That is appeal to pathos. Listen to me. I know what I'm saying here. Trust me, I'm a professor. That is an appeal to ethos. And those are the rhetorical appeals.